Yo, yo, yo. Or should I say, ho, ho, ho. It's championship week, baby, and we are pumped. It's your boy, Jolly Old Saint Frickolas, and with me, as always, the king of the cookie eating, the man that is going to win all of your championships and steal your money and eat your food, the one, the only, Drew Hannis. Drew, what's going on, my man?
Not much, man. Merry Christmas to you all. I just came back from a party, so I cut it close. Like I literally logged in at 8:29, and I'm still pulling up my notes. But 4 championships this year out of 6. I had my worst beat of all time this week.
That's unfortunate.
You're in that league, our boss league, dude. I was down by 8 Monday Night Football at Tyler Warren. Dude had 9 targets, and I thought he was going to get there. I lost by 2.2. It was probably my worst beat of all time in a playoff matchup. Brutal.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
But it's okay. Zach's team is pretty disgusting in that league, so I didn't anticipate. Like, he's projected to beat the person that beat me by, 47 in the finals.
Hey, man, you never know. I feel like it's any given Sunday. There's a lot of weirdness, and I think people are concerned about it a little bit where you avoid playing in week 18 because you're worried about people sitting out doing all this stuff. We're starting to see it a little bit in week 17, bleeding into that as well. The problem is if you're in a 6-man playoff, so if you're doing a 3-round playoff, you got maybe a first-round bye, quarterfinals, semifinals, championship, you don't really want to start the playoffs with bye weeks in the mix.
Yeah, it's
so
tough.
What really puts you in this weird kind of balance. I wish the NFL would just stop having bye weeks in week 14. Then you could just make the fantasy playoffs 14, 15, 16 like it was before the extra game, and then everybody would be in good shape. But we'll see what we can do. If you're around in the chat, if you have championship questions, please let us know. We're happy to get after it. Like Drew said, he's got quite a few. I think I've got 5 championships in redraft, and then I've got 2 charity championships that I'm in. So we'll see if I can bring it home for either one of those. So that's super exciting. And, we're just happy to be celebrating the holidays with you guys. But, Drew, as always, instead of throwing on the Santa suit, throw on that lab coat and talk to me about what's going on the injury front.
Let me rock at it quick.
Oh,
you kicked me out right as I left my leg. Everybody knows I got my Christmas jammies on. We took a picture, family photo before it came out. I was going to put my Grinch suit on, but just didn't have enough time. But honestly, my phone's been off the hook with injuries while we were at that party, and I probably missed some. So bear with me if anybody wants to throw any in the chat. But the notable ones for championships, I want to stick to guys that probably were going to be starting in most leagues. Starting with Lamar, he suffered that back contusion. He didn't practice again today, it looks like, right? So, that's tough. They play Saturday night. If he doesn't practice tomorrow, I feel like he's going to miss. Low-key, something to monitor. I think he's pushing to play, but it doesn't sound like that back contusion's, okay for him to come out there on Saturday in a win-or-go-home game for the Ravens. Jordan Love also in that game suffered a concussion. He's still in the protocol. We obviously talk about the protocol every single week. Non-linear injury. I don't think he's going to play either, but we'll see. Follow that along if you were starting Jordan Love in your leagues. I feel like if you had Jordan Love as your quarterback, you probably aren't in many championships. Same with Lamar because of how he's played and the injuries that he's had. Unless you're in a 2 QB league and your second quarterback was able to, lift up Lamar or something. Like one of my championships, I had that same situation with Lamar, but I feel like Jordan Love's going to miss as well. Gardner Minshew, I'm bringing him up. He was on my list because of his knee. It turns out he didn't tear his ACL, but he had a really bad ligament injury. Not a tear, but just a significant sprain. So he's going to miss some time with that and a bone bruise. I was going to bring him up mainly for Rashee Rice coming back from his concussion, but they placed him on IR today, so it's not even a discussion at this point. I was bringing up Minshew to talk about whether or not he was a startable player with Chris Oludekun, starting for the Chiefs. But Rashee Rice is going to miss anyways, placed on IR, so he's not going to be any lineups. But Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, guys that aren't going to be in my lineup.
No, there's no way you can trust it.
Yeah, you can't play a Chief.
No, even with Minshew in there, neither one of them really did anything before he got hurt.
Worthy had 7 targets, 4 catches, right? I think he had.
Yeah, but that was mostly after Minshew got hurt because I played him in a game last week and he had like 3 or 4 points maybe going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Anyways, you're right, though. I mean, Chiefs players can't be in lineups this week for championships, so just fade that entire offense. And then the biggest one of all, tough one. Hopefully this dude gets back after in the offseason. But Quinton Judkins fracture fibula. It's very similar to what Chris Godwin went through last year. The only difference is seems like he kind of dodged some significant ligament damage in his knee. It doesn't seem like it's as bad as what Godwin went through. They think that he should be ready for off-season programs in May. So
yeah, I thought he was going to be like complete ligaments.
Yeah, because it was bad.
It's all breaks, which is like not that terrible.
Yeah, I feel like it looked like Godwin, but turned out to be more like Dak Prescott's or like what Aiden Hutchinson went through.
Yeah.
He should be back for next year. So fortunately, that is the case. But if you were starting him, I had him in 3 of my championship rosters, and I'll be without him this weekend. But yeah, those are the main injuries I had. Is there anything that popped up today that I might have missed that you know of since I was I just got a lot of stuff alerts on my watch but didn't really get to follow.
No, I mean, the only ones you already talked about Lamar, Travion Henderson. I don't know if you think he's going to play.
Oh, yeah, concussion. I expect him to be out. I kind of consider Ramondre Stevenson as a potential OnlyFantasy option.
Yeah, we have Njoku's planning on not to play, so Harold Phantom becomes a must start against the Steelers. Mm-hmm. And then the only other one that's really interesting is Kamani Vidal day-to-day with the neck strain.
I had him on my list. I just don't really know what's going on with him, if he's going to miss or not. I can't really get a gauge. I wrote unknown, kind of his practice participation be our guides kind of thing.
Yeah, and then you have George Kittle with this like low ankle sprain.
Yes.
Able to play.
I missed him on my list because I made my list Monday morning since we had the short week this week.
Mm-hmm. And then you have JJ McCarthy. He's out, so they got Max Brosmer playing this week. Kind of ruins everything for the Vikings. And then Jordan Mason's not playing, so it should be a lead back opportunity for Aaron Jones. But not feeling too great about that. Josh Allen plans to play against the Eagles. Tough matchup. Didn't look great after he got hurt with that foot injury, so we'll see what happens there.
Do you think the Lions are a good matchup for Aaron Jones this week? Because I know that they've been a bad matchup, but they're
a good matchup for him. But it's just with with Brosmer, I don't know how much confidence I have in it.
Do you have any rosters in a championship that has Jefferson on it?
No.
I'm wondering if he's a sit, and that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's at best a flex, but I wouldn't want to bet my money on Brosmer being able to get him the ball. He threw for 120-some yards last week and had 4 picks. Like, it's not looking good. You have Marcus Mariota's already been declared out, so you got Josh Johnson going to be the starter there. Something that popped up, Amon-Ra is limited, but he's dealing with knee irritation, so they're not too worried about it. But we'll see what happens there. Brock Bowers got a season-ending IR for the knee injury he's been battling all season. And then TJ Hawkinson's out as well, so the Vikings are pretty much falling apart there. Pretty tough for them, but we'll see. All right, so we had a question in the chat. I'm going to pop over to the headlines board. It looks like something got messed up on our stage, but we'll see what happens. I don't know why it's doing that. That's super fun.
I don't even notice it. What's going on?
It's basically not recognizing you as here, which is great. So we'll deal with that as we go. I don't know what happened, but
you want me to just hop out and come back in?
No, that's not going to fix it. But we got Michael Goldfeld here in the chat. Wanted to get advice starting Jacoby Myers or Michael Wilson championship weekend.
Yeah, I think this is pretty easy. Would you say Michael Wilson's matchup is insanely good?
Michael Wilson does not have a good matchup.
Don't they have the Bengals this week?
Yes.
I don't think that they're a good matchup. I think they're a bad matchup. I think that's just who they played. I don't think that they'll stop anybody. And this line is 54.5. I expect a lot of points and throwing the ball a ton.
They've been a minus matchup for receivers all season. They've been dominated by tight ends, but that's it. I think the big thing with Michael Wilson, yes, he had that amazing catch last weekend that was overshadowed by Kenny Gainwell's ridiculous catch against Detroit, but he only had 3 targets. If he didn't bring in that touchdown, which he didn't even know that he caught, it would have been a dud of a week. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing, you can't play Michael Wilson. I don't care what the matchup is. He doesn't get the targets. It's Trey McBride, then Marvin Harrison. If Marvin Harrison isn't there, then it's Michael Wilson. They've shown that time and time again. Marv didn't have a great week last week. Nobody really had a great week last week. They kind of put Jacoby Brissett back to life, kind of what you expected him to be last week. So if the only way that I start Michael Wilson is if Marvin Harrison Jr. is out with the heel injury, which we don't know what's going to happen there. Jacoby obviously didn't have the big game last week, but he's been leading the team in targets. He's been leading the team in routes. You still got to trust that. So the only way, like I said, you're playing Michael Wilson is if Marv is out. But the problem there is that Turner has been great for Cincinnati, and he'll probably be on Michael Wilson if Marv is out.
I feel like Marv's going to play, and I think Turner's going to be on Marv.
But even still, if Marv is playing, Wilson just won't command enough targets, and you're banking on a touchdown. There's just a higher floor for Jacoby Myers, so I would roll with that.
I get where you're coming from. I have Michael Wilson in 3 championship lineups because I just feel good about the fact that I think it's going to be high scoring. I feel like he has been matchup dependent. Like he went off against the Texans 2 weeks ago. I don't know what happened last week where Brissett kind of just fell off. They didn't even target McBride last week either. It was all his backup tight end.
Yeah, it was super weird. But yeah, so Michael, that's what I would roll with.
I feel like Jacoby's been a better football player for Jacksonville than fantasy player for us. But I could be mistaken.
I do not agree with that at all.
Parker Washington was the guy last
Parker Washington had a good week last week, but before that, it's been all Jacoby Myers. He's been primarily the red zone guy. In the last 3 weeks, he's been targeted 23 times, which is 23% of their 23% target share. He's had 13 receptions. And then just as far as like his expected fantasy points per game is 15.5, which is pretty solid in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's a PPR.
Yeah. I just don't have enough Jacoby Myers that I guess it's kind of been flying under the radar for me.
Mm-hmm. No, he's been really solid.
Yeah. I mean, Michael, I think you should go with what Joe's saying.
Yeah.
Because you just own me.
Word up. All right. So let's talk about headlines a little bit. We touched on it with the Brosmer piece a little bit, but Drew, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks that will be playing football this week. Are there any that you feel like if you were in a super flex league that you would feel comfortable starting? Like who's the best out of the bad bunch in your opinion right now? And we'll put like the cap at like, say, so I'll list off some names and you can tell me. We'll go Brady Cook, Cam Ward, Max Brosmer, CJ Stroud, Phillip Rivers, Chris Oladukin, Josh Johnson, Quinn Ewers, Kirk Cousins.
If I have to start one of those guys, it's Josh Johnson against Dallas Cowboys.
Just purely matchup.
And I mean, he's been around the NFL. Like he's not some dude that's just never been on the field. Like Max Brosmer had one start, he was atrocious. You know what I mean? Like it's a guy that he's a veteran. I feel like he's your best option. And the matchup is the best possible match you can have for a quarterback. So
yeah. I think Kirk Cousins didn't look bad last week. I'd probably play him if I had to.
I'm worried about his matchup, and he's in a lineup for me.
Yeah. But we'll see. I think he'll do better than like he just has the highest floor out of the bunch. Like there's no way like Cook, Brosmer, Oladukin, even Quinn Ewers has a good matchup. I don't feel good about that one. Josh Johnson, like I'd have to really be drunk to consider it. But
I have Josh Johnson in a DFS play. I think he's like the perfect DFS play.
I could see it. All right. So another question from Michael. What chance do you think Kittle plays if it comes down to game time decision? Would you start Loveland or Tonjes?
I feel like George Kittle is probably one of the hardest players in the NFL to gauge whether he's going to play week to week because he gets hurt a lot, but he plays through so many injuries. You know what I mean? Like I always anticipate him playing.
Yeah.
If he doesn't play, I feel comfortable with Tonjes because of the way Purdy looked last week. He looked phenomenal.
5 TDs was crazy.
Yeah. And I feel like he can support multiple guys, and they don't have one guy besides CMC who's demanding a large target share. So I think there's a better chance that Tonjes will get the target share than Loveland because even with no Rome, who I don't anticipate playing again, Burden sounds like he might play. He didn't practice today, but there's more projection that he will play. Even when those guys weren't playing, Loveland didn't get a very large target share, if I remember last week, because I played him in a couple semis, and he didn't really do much for me. Let me pull back.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to who's available. So it's like if you look at both teams, they're pretty banged up from a wide receiver perspective. San Francisco doesn't have Ricky Pearsall. I don't know if you know anything about him and whether or not he's going to give it a go this week. We've already talked about Luther Burden and DJ Moore. If Luther Burden and DJ Moore are both out, I probably lean Loveland. I know he didn't have the game last week that people were expecting. I had him as a top 5 tight end play last week, and it just didn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
But I feel a lot better about him in a plus matchup with that offense trying to lock up the division than Tonjes, who becomes a much more tight end dependent play. I think they lean more on Jennings. I think they lean more on McCaffrey. And he's kind of there. He'll get his opportunities. But Loveland, I feel a lot more confident in. But if Burden plays, then that changes it for me. If Ricky Pearsall plays, it's like, so if everybody that didn't play last week plays, it's the same, then I would play Loveland. If Burden comes back, I play Tonjes. If you have full go lineup, so you have Loveland with Burden, you have Tonjes with Pearsall, I go Loveland again. So the only way that I'm playing Tonjes is if there's no Ricky Pearsall and Burden is playing.
I don't think Pearsall's going to play.
Yeah.
I don't know about Burden. Did he practice today? I know he didn't practice yesterday.
I don't
what I'm reading.
He did.
I feel like Burden's closer. I feel like Burden's closer than Pearsall to playing.
Yeah.
But it's early. I don't know. If you can get a guy like Brenton Strange, if he's somehow still in a waiver wire, which he probably got picked up last night.
Yeah, but I think people might have dropped him too because he's been kind of fluky. Like
he has a great matchup this week.
Yeah.
And I'd rather him because their offense has been rolling. I'd rather have a guy in a decent matchup with an offense that's putting up the amount of points that they're putting up than either of those guys. But
cool. All right. So we got a question from Epic Ape Fight. Wild name. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the party. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Hey guys, for Flex and PPR, who do you think will be the better play between Parker Washington, AJ Barner, and Taysom Hill? I can rule out Barner pretty quickly. Panthers have only given up 6.8 points to fantasy tight ends in the last 3 weeks, so that's going to be a no. Fourth toughest matchup in that span. They really struggle against wide receivers, so I'm expecting a big day from JSN. You might see like a good DFS play from Rashid Shaheed. So I think that rules that out. If we look at, say, Parker Washington, for example, you got the Jaguars going up against Indianapolis. They've been pretty porous against the wide receiver position, so there's definitely an option there. Drew, I want to talk a little bit about Taysom Hill. He's been the talk of the week amongst the fantasy community for the involvement that he had in the game last week. He led the team in carries. He ended up throwing a touchdown pass to Olave last week. Do you think that it's Taysom Hill time again, or do you think that was just a 1 week wonder?
I was leaning 1 week wonder. I didn't even consider picking him up, and they still on waivers in a few leagues I'm in. I wouldn't play Taysom.
Yeah, so you're thinking Parker Washington then for sure.
Yeah, I have Parker in a few leagues. He's been the guy that I've kind of been like, I feel like he could be fluky as well, but I think that he has some boom potential with how good that offense has been.
Okay. Cool. All right. So if Kittle does play, is that a good play? Yes. If Kittle's in your lineup, like you're playing him, you can't worry about the blocking game. He had a great game last week. He had the touchdown. Like there's nothing to worry about there. I would roll with it. Yeah, he came out of the game there at the end, but if he's going to play, you got to play him.
I think that you'll know. He said that Strange plays Sunday before Kittle plays. I think we're gonna know if Kittle's gonna play Friday. Like, I feel like if he's gonna be out, they'll tell us ahead of time.
Yeah, no, that makes
Saturday
sense.
at the latest. I feel like you'll know.
You'll probably find out before
The 1 o'clock game Sundays. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so that clears out the chat for us. So let's jump into one other headline that hits close to home. So our boy DK Metcalf, 2-game suspension upheld. I don't think that you would have been playing many of the Steelers' offensive weapons this week in Cleveland, but does that change anything for you? Would you pick up and say Adam Thielen as a wide receiver 1 this week?
I thought about picking up Adam Thielen, but it wasn't going to be to play him. They're just going to spread the ball around. I think they're going to focus mainly on running the ball. Honestly, I think Kenneth Gainwell gets – like, I like Kenneth Gainwell more now. Like, I have him in starting lineups even against the bad matchup. I think he gets more targets this week because of what he's been doing. But they're going to try to pound the rock, and they're going to have some situational passing, Adam Thielen, MVS, tight ends. They're just going to do whatever they got to do to win the game. I think from a fantasy perspective, it's Jalen Warren, which the Browns have been –
They've been weak against the run lately.
Yeah.
The hard part is that the Browns are a different beast at home.
Yeah.
So
and against the Steelers.
Yeah. They haven't won since 2020?
Yeah. I mean, we've been playing them in primetime more. The Steelers struggle on the road against divisional matchups in primetime.
It's because they're old. They don't like those late games.
Yeah, they have to go to bed by 9:30 like me. So
yeah.
I like Gainwell though, because he's going to get a lot of targets and they're high percentage targets. So I feel like he's the guy that you would want to start. And if they're still going to be porous on the run, I think Jalen Warren's a flex play.
Excellent. Cool, man. I like it. All right, so let's transition to Fantasy Football Tinder. If you haven't been rocking with us before, this is how this works. See how it keeps popping in and out?
Yeah, it's so weird.
Well, it's if you look at the show on stage on the left, it's all to the singles. So I don't know how that got switched, but it got switched. So yeah, it is what it is. But this is kind of how Fantasy Football Tinder works. So we're going to start off with our boy Zach. So Zach, as you know, big time deal at around the 412. The people want to know, will Zach wig up for the Packers-Ravens game to ensure that the Steelers don't have to worry about the Browns game at all? Some people might say yes and swipe right. You'll see the green hearts pop up on the screen and say, of course he will. He's going to be there. He is going to be in Lamar's face. He's going to be in Zay Flowers' face. Roquan Smith is going to be kicked out by the second quarter. The rest of them are going to say no, and they'll swipe left. You'll see the red X's pop up on the screen. And then they're going to say, Zach doesn't need that. We don't need the help. The Ravens are frauds. And Zach don't look good in a blue wig anyway, so why would he waste his time doing that? So where will we begin? Tinder 1, we have Nico Collins. Nico Collins has been struggling a little bit, especially since C.J. Stroud's come back. A little bit of concern here as we go into the championship rounds. Drew, do you think there is a good game in there just in the Nico time?
Yeah, I'm with you in the concern. The main reason why I swiped right was I feel like Nico can provide a similar game to what George did last week in the same match against the Chargers. He's a deep threat. It only takes one from him for him to pay off. And that's what I'm banking on. I feel like you drafted Nico at the end of the first round, early second. If you're in the championship with a guy like Nico, you're just going to hope that he pays off with a big one. But I am concerned about the matchup. I'm just hoping that he's more like George than he is like CD, who kind of struggled with them last week. I think that based on their play type, Nico's more of a deep threat, similar to what George is. So I'm going to bank on him, getting one of those long ones. Hopefully he gets like 7 to 8 targets because he's kind of been in that range over the past few weeks. I think 7 is enough for him to pay off.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that he can bring a big one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to swipe right as well. Like you said, averaging 7 targets a game in the last 3 weeks. His yards per route run, 2.91, and his expected fantasy points per game is top 12 at 15.94. So it hasn't necessarily connected. He hasn't really gotten the big pieces from it. But at the end of the day, you got to kind of roll with it. It appears to be more of like a flex play than what you signed up for at the beginning of the year. but no one cares about draft capital anymore. It's the championship. We're scrapping, we're clawing, and he's probably going to be a better explosive play than who you'd be throwing in on the flex anyway. So I'm with you there. Anytime, Michael, appreciate the like and the sub. Best of luck to you in this championship week, and we hope that you have a wonderful holiday season with the fam. But that's awesome. All right, Drew, let's transition to Tinder 2. So Tinder 2, we have Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving was a very popular kind of rebound playoff hero to be. It hasn't necessarily translated that well. Last week, kind of a dud of a performance. He keeps getting sniped by your boy, Sean Tucker. But is this the week? Are we getting buck wild in week 17, Drew?
Yeah, I swiped left on Bucky. And this one's tough because the matchup is phenomenal. I mean, Chase Brown's coming off a running back one performance against the Dolphins with 3 touchdowns. But my concern with Bucky, and I'm going to have him in 3 lineups because I have no choice to put him in those lineups. But if I have another option or if I'm on the fence, Bucky's not my choice. And the main reason is because what you said, he's not getting the goal line work. It seems like Rachaad White is getting majority of the passing down work. Bucky's getting a couple targets here and there, but they're not like I don't think that he has that boom potential because he has to break a long one with how they're utilizing that running back room right now. Sean Tucker's getting the goal line. Rachaad White's coming in on 3rd and longs.
And Bucky what's interesting is that they said after the game, yeah, we should have gave Rachaad White more touches.
Which is even worse.
That being said, Christmas Miracle, I'm swiping right. There's no way that you're not playing Bucky this week. I mean, you already said it. Like, he's going to be better than most options that are coming off the bench. Even the fact that, like, his floor is like 7-8 points, I'll live with that as my running back too. Yes, did you draft him to be your RB2? No. And that's frustrating. Fine, I get it. But you made it to this point with most of the season him not being there. This is a bonus. Obviously, if you have 2 studs that have shown up, get after it, go play them. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to need to be playing him this week. And I think that if he finds the end zone, then he's in for a much bigger week, which I think that he can do.
I think he has to break a long one. That's my only worry. Because, I think if they get close, Sean Tucker's going to get the touchdowns. I'm worried that, I'm playing him because I feel like I have to. If you get to this point, you might have to. But if you have a wide receiver that you like more, I'd probably throw them in there at the flex. It's just –
I like that call. Yeah, I think he is a strong RB2 play if you need an RB2. If you're flexing, there's probably more upside in a receiver for sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm at because I don't know if he has the upside with RB2 if he doesn't score. But
right,
I'm hoping that he does. He's going to be in my lineup because of the matchup. I swipe left just to outline that my concern is that he's not utilized as the Bucky Irving that we thought he'd be utilized.
No, yeah, no doubt. Which is funny because the first week back, it seemed like he was going to be that guy. And then they pull back from it. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the must-win mentality will change things, but who knows? Todd Bowles does some interesting stuff from time to time.
The wild thing, too, really quick before we transition.
Yeah, you're good.
Have you seen Bucky Irving's projections on these sites, too? That is a fall from grace. He's projected 5.6 on ESPN this week.
That's wild. I would expect more, honestly. I don't know. He's averaged 11.
He only had 1 reception for 50 yards last week, though. It's just they're just not feeling it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. We got Levi Stevens in the chat. Merry Christmas and best of luck to you in your championship week. We got Baker Mayfield, Jackson Dart, Bo Nix. Who do you like this week, Drew?
I gotta rule Jackson Dart out right away. If you watch the last couple weeks, it seems like the team is really trying to get him not to run as much, and he's kind of looked finicky out there because he's not able to play his game. And it just looks weird. So I wouldn't want to play Jackson Dart. And if he does, disobey what they want him to be doing, he might be out with a concussion in the second and third quarter, and you're not going to have those points available. I got to look at these matchups, but he's hurt. Baker just hasn't been Baker as of late. So I'm not really.
Baker against Miami, who has been a plus matchup, but they played Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, New York Jets. Joe Burrow torched them last week.
Yeah.
So, for me, it comes down to Bo Nix or Baker Mayfield, just to give you some things that I think about whenever I'm deciding between stuff like this. So the first is going to be like the implied points, because if they're expected to score more points, then somebody's going to have to do it on those teams. Interestingly enough, for both of those teams, Denver's implied point total 25 this week. Tampa Bay is 26. Pretty even. We look at the last 3 weeks. Bo Nix has averaged 20.7 points per game. Baker Mayfield has 15.3. Opponent points per game. Baker has the slight edge, 15.6 to the 13.7 for the opponent fantasy points per game. Then the last one that I like, this is a stat that the fantasy points data has, and based on the coverages that those defenses deploy, they basically give like a coverage matchup score for like what they're expecting the player to do beyond like their standard baseline of a 0. Bo Nix has the second best coverage matchup score against Kansas City, 11.55% boost. With it being as close as it is, I'm going to take Bo Nix, who's been kind of on a heater lately. I just don't trust the Tampa Bay offense right now as much with Baker trying to gut it out. I know he has a slightly better matchup, but I just think that Denver's humming. I think they're going to want to be really putting the nail in the coffin for the Chiefs season. So give me Bo Nix, but it's not by much. But I'm with you, Drew. Jackson Dart's kind of a shell of himself right now.
Yeah, and I'm leaning Knicks too. I feel like the Chiefs are just kind of like giving up in a way. Like they're just running out the clock on this season, and it just doesn't seem like they're there. So like I feel like Bo Nix, they're still playing for the 1 seed. They have a lot to play for. I feel like Bo, and like I said, Baker's hurt. Like he just doesn't look like the same Baker Mayfield that we saw. Like week 5, if the season ended, he probably wins MVP, and now he's just like completely flipped.
It's the same exact thing that happened to him that last year in Cleveland when he messed up his shoulder and tried to play through it.
Yeah,
it's just not working so well, and it's absolutely brutalized Emeka Egbuka as well. So we'll see. We got Cash Money in the chat. What's up, dollar bills, y'all? Would you flex Bucky or JMO? This one feels pretty straightforward to me. Jamison Williams has been on a tear lately. He's averaging 9 targets per game in the last 3 weeks. Expected fantasy points per game, 17 and some change. Inside the 20 targets per game, 1.33. And a must-win game for Detroit. I know Minnesota's been hot against the passing attack, but it's the Lions in a dome with the season on the line. It only takes one play for Jamison Williams. He's getting a lot more volume and expected points. So give me JMO over Bucky for sure.
And like you mentioned, Amon-Ra is banged up, and I feel like that's why JMO's been much better as of late. And
yeah,
they have to win. So like this kind of like ties into why I swiped left, because like if you're faced with a situation like this is where I'm swiping left on Bucky, and I'm going with JMO. So it just kind of worked out nicely.
I like it. Cool. But thanks for tuning in on this Christmas Eve. All right, Drew, we are nearing the end of our time here. So let's jump into our OnlyFantasy subscriptions for the week. For the people that want to know how this works, this is our OnlyFantasy subscriptions where every week we give one name and one name only who we think is going to jump out and be fantastic as far as their performance for the given fantasy week, which is of a heightened importance given that it is championship week. Let's take a look at how we did last week in week 16. I had selected Mike Evans, who went 5 for 31 and a touchdown on 9 targets. He was wide receiver 23. I was expecting a top 5 performance out of him. I was really sad to see that it broke the way that it did. So I gave kind of the Pinocchio nose there. Kind of lied a little bit there. And then Drew was a big mother shucker. 32 completions for 380 yards and 1 touchdown, 2 carries for 8 yards, QB 16. I feel like the QBs just balled out last week. I mean, if you would have told me that like Tyler Shuck threw for 380 yards, like that, there's no way that he's going to be QB 16. But there was just a lot of passing touchdowns last week.
And it was because Taysom Hill stole one from him. If he gets that one to Olave, he's a top 10 quarterback.
Right, yeah.
That's why I put that emoji, because I was just like, man, like they stole one from him. But 380, he did exactly what I expected. It just didn't get that.
I mean, it was a great play. He was somebody that I advocated a lot for when people were asking questions for like Fantasy Sports Advice Network. I was like, we're all mother shuckers this week.
Mother shuckers for sure.
That's right. All right, Drew. So before we jump into the OnlyFantasy for this week, I do want to kind of just address this question that's in the chat so that we can kind of get some more info here. So we got Tom Dessenberger, big TD. I've got Dak as my starter, but Love on my bench. Who should I replace Love with in an emergency situation? So, Tom, I just want to get a feel for like who's available in your league right now, rather than just kind of throwing out some names. Then we could probably help you a little bit more. But if you throw us some names of kind of like the top options that are out there, we could definitely work with you there. And then we'll get back to that question if that sounds good. All right, Drew. So you got one name and one name only. OnlyFantasy Championship Week. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Who you got?
Yeah, so this is funny. This guy balled out last week. He was on my bench going into Sunday, and then someone just happened to be a late inactive that I did not expect to be inactive. So I threw him into my flex spot against the Houston Texans, which was a terrible matchup. And RB1, RB2 this week.
He was up there for sure, yeah.
It depends on if where he's at between Chase Brown and Ashton Genty, because it depends on your league size. He was RB1 in my league because there's bonuses for long touchdowns. He had 2 50-plus yard touchdowns. So one passing, one on the ground. Ashton Genty, if you're in a championship league, I feel like it's possible that he's on some rosters because he was like a borderline 1-2 pick, and there's a possibility where you ended up with Genty and Puka Nacua. Like I have a couple drafts where I end up with Puka and Genty, and because Puka was so good for so long, he carried me into the playoffs. So I found myself with like Genty sitting there, even though a lot of leagues you wouldn't expect him, but like because of Puka, if you had that matchup in your lineup, and that's how you started your drafts, you still had a shot to make the playoffs. So Ashton Genty has the Giants this week. They've been like up and down against running backs. I'm going Genty just because if you put up what you did against the Texans last week, Brock Bowers got placed on IR. I feel like that's a game that's going to help him build on his rookie season into 2026. Kind of like, do you remember when Derrick Henry, like he was like barely doing anything for the Titans, and then all of a sudden he just balled out against Jacksonville. He went
Yeah.
I feel like Ashton Genty could have a similar end of season here that'll just really propel him into 2026. And they've given up 95 rushing yards in back-to-back games. It's just that they haven't given up a lot of touchdowns. I was expecting more from Aaron Jones last week, personally.
No, I was too. Also, before you keep going, I just want to acknowledge we had a super chat from Cash Money. 10 bones. Appreciate it. Like, sub. Merry Christmas, my man. Very thankful for you and jumping on the show, especially on a holiday evening. We'll make sure that this money goes to the Rockin' Around the 412 for next year since that's already closed. But we appreciate you checking us out and showing a little bit of love. But any other thoughts you have, Drew? Sorry to interrupt you on that one.
No, you're good. Like I said, it's more of a vibes pick, honestly. I think that Ashton Genty's going to propel himself from that matchup against Houston last week. And I think he's going to win some leagues, which is going to be awesome considering he struggled for much of this season and a lot of people were hurting from it. I think that you have him in a championship. I think he's going to pay off for
the only downside is that if he did flop, it's a great buy low opportunity. Probably the best buy low opportunity that you'll ever have.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. Okay. Before we jump into my OnlyFantasy subscription for the week, we did hear back from Tom. So he said he's got Geno Smith, Johnson, Quinn Ewers, Kirko Bangs, Shador Sanders. To me, I'm liking Kirk Cousins against the Rams on Monday Night Football. The Rams have been giving up 20 points per game in the last 3 weeks to quarterback, so I like the matchup there. I actually wrote about it this week in my Frick'em or Pick'em article for the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. So I think that he does have the tools there to make things happen. I have him ranked as my QB 17, which isn't necessarily like amazing. I would love to be able to jump up. I think Tyler Shuck has enough in him to make another top 12 week against Tennessee. But I think that Kirk Cousins can kind of keep that momentum going. The Rams have not been great against quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, pretty neutral matchup as far as like the coverage that they throw at him. But I think out of those options, I don't have any confidence in Geno Smith, especially without Brock Bowers. I know that you like Johnson's matchup, but like I just have more faith in Cousins. Ewers and Sanders. I think Sanders is going to have a tough week against the Steelers. I think Mike Tomlin's going to come out hot because of that trade that they made. It's no, but like that trade that they made against Cincinnati, if they don't have Joe Flacco that 1 week, this division's already locked up. I think Tomlin's going to come out hot. I think he's going to try to show like, all right, like I didn't forget about this. So for me, it's going to be Kirko Cousins with the Coles cash.
Yeah, I think it's even more than that. Without not having DK, like they know that they just need to finish this off now. If they go into Week 18 without DK again against Baltimore, I think that they're playing fire. So I think they're going to come out and play. The defense is going to be on fire. I'm with you on Kirk. I think that Josh Johnson is like I mentioned it more of like if you're really desperate, like and you really need to get something out there, and because a lot of people lost guys to injuries the last few weeks. There's been a lot of
yeah.
If you need to do something as Josh Johnson, but you need to preferably pick a guy that's done it before for you as a fantasy option, which is Kirk for sure.
Yeah, I would rank it Cousins, Sanders, then Johnson, Geno Smith, and then Ewers would be at the bottom of my list.
You think Shador's going to do anything against Steelers? Like I think that the Steelers are the number one defense to play this week. Like I just don't.
Yeah, but Shador could still put up points, and that could still be true. Relative to these guys, yeah, I mean these are all like QBs 20 through whatever for me. So like, I'm not saying Shador is about to put up a top 10 performance, but points allowed last 3 weeks. I mean, Steelers, they're giving up 21.2. Granted, they played Detroit, Miami, Baltimore, but still.
The matchup is just so good. Like I don't like the chat's destroying Josh Johnson, which I get it. But the dude's been in the league playing for like 15 different teams for a reason. They always bring him around.
We'll see. But yeah, I would roll with Cousins.
Yeah.
All right. So we also had Brian in the chat. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Wilson or Marv Harrison going to blow up this week? I think the consensus between the two of us is going to be no. If Marv and Wilson are both playing, Wilson becomes useless. If Wilson is the only receiver of the two playing, then Turner is going to be shadowing him, and he's probably going to have a tough matchup there either way.
I just feel like it's going to be so high scoring that someone's got to catch the ball.
If Marv isn't playing, you have to play Wilson because of what we've seen him do as the sole receiving option. But I think Marv plays. I don't know if you feel that he will or not, but
he played last week, so I anticipate him playing again.
Yeah. All right, so there you have it, folks. But let's jump back into the OnlyFantasy subscriptions of the week. Drew, I mean, I feel like you did a lot of the talking for me. We didn't get to chat a lot just because of the holidays, but my pick for the week, my man Kenny G. Kenny G is going to have a monster game. He's the de facto wide receiver 1 for the Steelers this week. You know they're going to depend on him in the passing game. They trust him a lot on the ground, and Jaylen Warren popped up with a knee thing this today. So I think Kenny Gainwell is going to be really involved. Full PPR format, I think he's a top 15 running back, and if you have him on your team for whatever reason, you got to play him.
Yeah, I did. I could even see your pick, like, because we didn't talk, and I was like trying to like look at it, but it was a dark jersey on a dark background. I couldn't figure out who it was. And yeah, Kenny G, definite. Like the way he's been with DK, he's gonna get targeted a lot.
Yeah, and they're not gonna put like a cornerback on him, so they're gonna want to exploit that linebacker running back matchup. Although the Browns do have one of the best off-ball linebackers in the league in Schlesinger. So it'll be fun to watch that matchup because that kid can ball. Like as a rookie, he's already one of the best in the league.
Yeah, but Kenny really is like a wide receiver coming out of the backfield.
Yeah. So. No, he's sick. All right, so let's do our little dance again. Let's jump into the socials. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I know that it's kind of the holiday evening. We got Christmas coming up, all this good football. I don't know if the Thursday football is actually going to be good. I know the NFL is furious about that. But if you like what we're doing, the party don't ever stop. You could find us on our personal handles at JOEFRK or at Drew Hannis. You can find the show's Twitter account at AT412FF Show. And you can find us on YouTube and Twitch at Around the 412. Drew, as we close out this Christmas Eve special, any last-minute thoughts that you'd like to share with the viewers?
No, man. It's been a long season. Hopefully people don't have championships at Week 18, and you come along with some championships after this. Hopefully we still see some people in the chat next week. We'll still go after it for Week 18, but hopefully you don't have to stress out trying to see if you can start Joe Milton next week in the championship, because I feel
Hey,
like
brother, it's going to be a good time, but we'll see what happens. If you are a Week 18 sicko, though, we will be here. We will break down the matchups. It will be at 8:30, 7:30 Central, around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. I'm Joe Frick, a.k.a. Jolly Old St. Frickolas. That's Drew Hannes, a.k.a. Mr. Moneybags himself. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy Championship Week. We will see y'all next time, and best of luck in your championship week. So let's get after it. Let's do it. And without further ado, oh, I see a question in the chat. Oh, we got a week 18 sicko. So yeah, Brian, make sure you come check us out next week. Looking forward to help you win that championship that you got. So best of luck to you. But that's all we got this week. Until next time, my friends, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and be safe out there.